Welcome to Burn the Rules with Chet Hirani. This podcast is for people who know leadership isn't about titles, noise, or ticking boxes. It's about how you think, how you show up, and how you perform when pressure is real. I'm Chet Hirani, and I work with leaders and high performers across business, sport, and life all over the world who want to take control of how they lead and perform. Not by copying someone else's rules, but by understanding themselves first. Every conversation here is grounded in experience, reflection, and practical insight. So if you're ready to question what leadership has been taught to be and decide what it means for you, you're in the right place. It was 2010. I'm standing on a stage in front of 250 people and I'm falling apart. My hands are shaking, my voice is cracking, my eyes are locked on the floor because if I looked up, if I make contact with a single person in that audience, I know I'm done. I'm genuinely thinking about walking off mid-sentence, just leaving the room and never speaking publicly again. That's where I was. That was me, a corporate leader who could run multi-million-pound programs, who could sit across from a C-suite board and call out hard truths without flinching. And I couldn't get through 5 minutes on a stage without wanting to disappear. And the reason wasn't the audience. It wasn't the content. It wasn't the lights or the room. It was me. I was a problem. I was so afraid of failing publicly that I'd already failed before I opened my mouth. Fear had won before I'd even started fighting. If you've ever held back from something you know you should do, a conversation, a decision, a move, because something inside you said, not yet, or what if, then stay with me, because this episode is going to make you uncomfortable. That is the point. Welcome to Burn the Rules. You know who I am, Chet Hirani, and this episode is called Fear is Not Your Enemy, You Are. And before you switch off because you think that this is another feel the fear and do it anyway pep talk, it's not. This is the conversation nobody wants to have because the problem isn't fear. The problem is what you're doing with it. And I'm willing to bet that most of you listening right now are using fear as a hiding place. You've just dressed it up as being sensible. Let me call something out here now. There's a lie that's high-performing leaders tell themselves all the time. And it goes like this. I'm not avoiding. I'm just waiting for the right time. Does that sound familiar? The right time to have that conversation, the right time to make that move, the right time to launch that thing, leave that role, say that truth out loud. Let me tell you something. The right time is fear wearing a suit. It's the most sophisticated excuse high achievers have because it sounds reasonable. It sounds strategic, but it's not strategy. It's hiding. And the longer you wait, the louder the fear gets. I know this because I lived it. When I left corporate and started my coaching business, I was paralyzed, not by the lack of ideas or ability, but by what ifs. What if no one trusts me? What if I can't deliver results? What if I fail completely and everyone who ever knew me in corporate watches it happen? And here's the part I don't usually admit. I didn't just hesitate. I stalled. I convinced myself I needed more preparation, more research, a better website, a better pitch, a better everything. I was dressing up fear as professionalism. And every day I waited, my confidence dropped just a little bit more. Because that's what inaction does. It doesn't protect you, it erodes you. Every day you don't act, fear gets a little more comfortable and you get a little more stuck. So let me repeat that again. Every day you don't act, fear gets a little more comfortable and you get a little more stuck. I did the only thing that actually works. Simply, I started. One client, one conversation, one imperfect, messy, unpolished step. And that single step crack the fear wide open. Because the thing about fear is actually a mirage. The closer you move toward it, the more it fades. But you have to move. Nobody's coming to move you. So I want to talk about the most dangerous 2 words in leadership. And they're not, I can't, they're what if. What if I mess up? What if I'm not ready? What if I fall? What if it all falls apart? What if they see I don't have it all figured out? Now, let me ask you a different question. When was the last time you flipped those what ifs? What if this is the best version you've ever made? What if this conversation changes everything? What if this moment is the one you've been waiting for and you're not about to talk yourself out of it? So fear doesn't actually predict the future. It projects your insecurity onto it. Every what if you're running in your head right now is fiction. It hasn't happened. It's a story you're telling yourself to justify staying exactly where you are right now. Just sit with that for a moment. Look, I worked with a senior leader once, yeah? Let's call her name Sarah. She had been promoted to a global role. On paper, it was the opportunity she had been working towards for years. Dream job, bigger scope, more influence, everything she wanted. But within the few months, things started unraveling. She was struggling to manage time zones, culture dynamics, the weight of expectation from her regional and global teams. Her confidence took a hit. She started second guessing every second, and that became overly cautious. Her team felt it, and the more she hesitated, the worse it got. When she came to me, the first thing we unpacked wasn't her strategy or her time management. It was her fear. She was trying to lead the new role using the same mindset that worked in her old roles. She wasn't failing, she was frozen, afraid that if she'd made the wrong call in a bigger arena, the fall would be bigger too. And here's what I told her. And I'm telling you the same thing right now. Fear doesn't shrink when your role gets bigger, it grows. If you're waiting until you feel ready to act, you'll be waiting forever. Because readiness isn't feeling, it's a decision. Let me take you back to that stage where I was at 2010, the one where I nearly walked off. After that disaster, I'm calling it, and it was a disaster. I had a choice. I could avoid public speaking for the rest of my career, stay behind the scenes, keep quiet in meetings, let other people take stage. And honestly, that's what I wanted to do. That was a comfortable option. But comfortable wasn't going to get me where I needed to go. So I did what I've always done. When something scares me, I leaned in. Yeah, I practiced relentlessly. I went to workshops. I got feedback from mentors. I invested in a coach. Every time I spoke, I got a fraction better. Not overnight, not in some dramatic movie montage, slowly, painfully, one awkward talk at a time. Then in 2022, something happened that I wasn't expecting. I was approached and they said, "You have an idea worth sharing to the world." It was a TEDx invitation. And you know what my first reaction was? Fear, straight back, like it had never left. I was thinking, why me? What if I'm not ready? What if I forget my lines? What if I get on that red dot and I freeze, just like 2010? Same fear, different stage, but only 12 years later. And that's the thing nobody tells you about fear. You don't beat it once and it goes away. It does come back. Every single time you level up, fear is already there, waiting at the door. The question isn't how do I get rid of fear? It's what do I do when it shows up again? I said yes, obviously, for this invitation. I spent months preparing, hours of writing, rewriting, rehearsing, cutting what didn't work, holding my nerve through the doubt. And when I stepped onto that red dot, something shifted. I wasn't performing. I was owning my story. And for the first time, I understood that the fear I'd been running from for 12 years wasn't the enemy. It was the the evidence that what I was about to say mattered to me. That's all fear is. It's proof that you care. And the moment you see that, and the moment you see it in that way, it stops owning you. Now, I want to get slightly specific here because fear doesn't always look like shaking hands on a stage. For most leaders, fear is quieter than that. It hides, it disguises itself. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you won't even recognize it. So face one thing, perfectionism. This is fear dressed up as high standards. I just want to get it right. No, you don't. You want to avoid being criticized. There's a difference. There's a difference here. Perfectionism doesn't produce better work. It produces no work or delayed work or work that took me 3 times longer than it should have because you couldn't let it go. When I was deciding whether to launch my 5 states of optimization coaching program, I was stuck in that exact trap, waiting for it to be perfect. I could have waited forever. Instead, I brought in 10 people I trusted, gave them the raw version, let them pull it apart, and built something better from their feedback. Imperfect action beat perfect planning every time. Phase number 2, over preparation. This is the cousin of perfectionism. You research, you plan, you strategize, you build frameworks and contingencies and backup plans for your backup plans. And none of it moves forward because the preparation has become the activity. I see this constantly with the executives I coach. They're not preparing to act, they're preparing to avoid acting. And the preparation itself becomes the comfort zone. See, real leaders prepare, then move. They don't sit in the planning forever. At some point, you have to trust yourself enough to step out of the spreadsheet and into the actual room. Phase number 3, comparison. This one is silent and it's lethal. You look at someone else's success and use it as evidence of your own inadequacy. They've got more experience. They've got a bigger network. They started earlier. Who am I to do this? I'll tell you who you are. You're the one who's feeling the pull towards something and using someone else's highlighted reel as a reason to stay still. Comparison doesn't motivate, it paralyzes. And it's fear's favorite disguise because it looks like humility, but it's actually self-sabotage. So this is your move here, right? So here's where I stop being polite completely. If you've been listening to this and nodding along, recognizing yourself in the stories, seeing the patterns, then nodding isn't enough, right? Awareness without action is just entertainment. And I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to move you. So here's what I want you to do. And I mean, do it today, within the next 24 hours, not this weekend, not when you've thought about it, actually today. So here it is. Number 1, name the fear you've been disguising. Is it perfectionism, over preparation, comparison, waiting for the right time? Call it what it is out loud if you have to do it, because fear loses power the second you stop pretending it's something else. Number 2, flip your what ifs. Write down the 3 what ifs that have been running your decision. Then rewrite them. What if I fail becomes, what if this works? What if they judge me becomes, what if they needed to hear exactly this? That's not positive thinking. That's accurate thinking, because your negative what ifs were fiction to basically, you've just never answered them. Number 3, take one imperfect action, send the message, book the meeting, start the project. Have the conversation. It doesn't have to be good. It has to be real. The first step is never clean, but it's the only one that matters. Now that's it. 3 moves. Name it, flip it, act on it. Look, I stood on a stage at 2010 and almost walked off. 12 years later, I stood on a TEDx Red Dot and owned the room. That didn't happen because the fear went away. It happened because I stopped letting fear make my decisions. Look, fear is not your enemy. It never was. It's a compass. It points directly at the things that matter most to you. The conversation you're afraid to have, that's the one that needs having. The move you're afraid to make, that's the one that'll change everything. The version of yourself you're afraid to step into, that's the one the world is waiting for. So stop blaming fear, start blaming what you're doing with it. If this episode hit that nerve, good. Share it with someone who's stuck in the same loop. If you want to go deeper, grab a copy of my book, Burn the Rules, Lead from Within. And if you're a leader who's done letting fear run the show, just reach out. That's exactly what I'm here for. I'm Chet Hirani. This is Burn the Rules. And I'll see you, as always, on the next one. Before you go, take a moment to think about what stayed with you from this conversation. Not what sounded impressive, but what challenged how you think, decide, or lead. See, leadership isn't something you wait for. It's something you practice internally, daily, and deliberately. And remember this, you can't lead a life that matters by following rules that don't. If this episode gave you perspective, share it with someone who's ready to take more control of how they lead and perform. And subscribe wherever you listen and keep redefining leadership on your own terms.